Hello, welcome to Waiting for Game, a special horse voice edition. I'm your host, Give Me That Wheat, and with me today as my co-host, my good friend, Melee's first bee jumper. We've got Edwin Budding. What is going on, Edwin?
Not much, man. I'm doing pretty well. One thing I want to really quickly mention is that I appreciate you, not just in general and for hosting the show and everything, but for actually, in spite of a hoarse voice, leading the intro. I want to say that I definitely think this docks me a few spots on the wheat friend ranking, or maybe I'm just the kind of person. Maybe I just have things like that.
You never
I,
even offered to do the intro, man.
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I
No,
feel like
it's okay, man. I would not have relinquished this. This is like the one thing I've got going. So
yeah.
I
But
gotta do the intros.
yeah, but with
If I
that
don't
out of
have
the
that,
way, we're going to go to another person who is quickly rising up the ranks of the Wheat friend list and the Edwin friend list. Um,
unsubstantiated.
yeah, Radar. We have a commentator, Radar. We have a content creator, someone I worked with very hard for an upcoming Who Wants to Be a Millionaire content piece for Battle VC. I'm really excited to have him with us on the show. Radar, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm always down to hop on the podcast, especially this podcast. Just like chatting about Melee, especially with people that I enjoy chatting with about other things, of course. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I did say this when we started, like definitely kind of a little migrainey, so not
Mm,
feeling super great. But wheat, like you, I'm kind of pushing on. So
yeah,
oh
man.
well,
The show must go on.
the
Now,
show must
speaking
go
of
on.
shows, you mentioned that you like being on this podcast, especially. What other podcasts have you been on? I wanna know like how we rank.
What other podcasts have I been on? I mean, I guess just my own. I feel like I was on Battle on the Smash Mountain,
Okay.
and then like I think I was on one other one that I'm forgetting.
Hmm.
Might just be those three though.
I think a good question to have about these sorts of podcasts, though, is based on the ones that you've been on, who do you think does the most amount of research typically?
What kind of question is that? One of them is mine. Like,
Yeah, so I mean, like, there's the mix up, there's Radio Melee, then there's Waiting for Game. Where does if you had to guess, where does Waiting for Game like rank in terms of doing its research?
it's probably pretty high up there given the format.
You would think.
Yeah, you think so?
You would think.
Edwin, no need to harp on it. I think YouTube comments for our latest episode were positive. We beat the allegations. We beat the not as good as Radio Melee allegations. Which, by the way, allegations that I do believe in. I don't think we're as good as Radio Melee.
It's almost funny because you're saying that we beat the allegations, but the fact that I'm bringing up again after we already won is kind of like it's like a self own, right? It's
In the
almost
parlance of Edwin, we have been owned.
yeah.
Hey, Radar, I've got a quick question for you before we get into everything. So we love, in the Melee community, we love rankings of all sorts, right? We love to talk about, who's the number one character in Melee, right? Who's the top 8? Like, where's Falcon? We talk about all this. We, of course, especially on this show, we talk about who's top 5, who's top 10, what does this look like? You also are no stranger to rankings. I know that there is a very famous ranking that you put out online. This is with your fiance. And do you want to go into this? Do you want to explain what this is, or should I explain this to the
Are we
audience?
still doing this bit? Is this
I don't
bit?
think it's a bit. I'm
I feel like this
completely
is of
serious.
such urgency that we must address the controversy that all the people are waiting for.
It's really very important, right? There's no other reason I'd bring it up in the beginning of the show. I think that we'd be doing our audience a disservice if we waited for any other portion of the show. I think it has to be up front. So, do you want to go over it, or should I?
I think you can go over it. I'd like to hear your take on it.
Sure. So you and your fiance, very cute thing to do. You came together to make a ranking of fruit. Everyone loves fruit. We all have our opinions.
Hmm.
I think there were a couple tiers. You had your, of course, haven't tried or something like that. But we have like S plus, S, A, B, C, D, or whatever. Um, Now, there is a very interesting pick. Not only is this number one, this is consensus number one. This is the only pick in S plus tier. Do you want to say what it is?
Yeah. It was lemons were S plus.
Mm-hmm.
The rationale being that on top they basically they cover like every area of food, right? Like they're good in dessert, they're good in drinks, they're good in like cocktails, they're good in just kind of general baking, they're great in cooking. The only thing that they're not good at is like just straight up like biting into one. But like because literally every other category, like I kind of just there's so many things, and they actually like have utility too. You can cook with them, and they can really change a recipe. That was the rationale. Um, I think there's so many things that I like that are like lemony flavor. It's even used in like fucking cleaning products, you know. So
Sure.
it's just like
Hey, it's used in a lot of stuff. If you're talking about favorite
oh
fruit, you
my
got to talk about cleaning products. So the question is, because you've got very sound logic here, the question is, why are limes so far down then?
okay. So we talked about this before. I like that I get to talk about this again. So if you listen to everything I just said, and then you put that against limes, and keep in mind, like, you know, I have a less passionate opinion than my fiance does on this, but like
Backing down already.
Yeah, throwing a fiance
Miriam
under
is
the water
literally in the
also.
background saying there's lemons in tonight's dinner, just FYI. so, yeah, limes just like they don't do the things that lemon does as well. Like lemonade versus limeade, which one's better? Like I would say
It feels like
lemonade.
a leading question. I mean, you talk about cocktails. Lime is king in cocktails.
Sure, that's one category where I would say it is probably better. But
I
Hey,
like,
when you get
prefer
a pad thai, what do you get? You get a
yeah, I was
lime
gonna say
next to it.
I prefer lime in Thai food.
Oh, you just got some tacos al pastor. They come out in the little, the corn tortillas. They come out. What's next to them? Couple limes. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, if I may say so, Radar, though, to give you credit, you are correct. I think lemon has quite a bit of utility in it. You mentioned it beautifully that you use it to, cook food in, you use it as like a topping on things. Yeah, that all makes sense. What I'm wondering is if this utility-based approach to organizing food, if this applies in other areas, right? Or if it wouldn't stand out, right? Like if someone said, "Oh, like I'm making a tier list of my favorite foods to have for dinner, and ketchup is number one in a tier on its own, or tomato is on in a tier of its own." Would that now I wonder, like, did you see something like that and you thought to yourself, "My God, maybe this could work with fruits"? Or did you truly come up with this utility-based approach to food? Because I really think it could be groundbreaking.
I never know how to respond to your weird bits. Like it's like, okay, I don't know. I do think if I were to see a food, well, if we did a vegetable tier list, um, or fruit tier list, and we had tomato, like tomato's a fruit, right? Isn't it?
The definition of fruits and vegetables are all very confusing. I don't believe vegetable is actually a term that is used in science, right?
I
It's
believe
a
that.
it's a group of roots and tubers and starches and other things. But yeah, the common thing is that if it has seeds, it's a fruit, right? Cucumber's a fruit technically.
I like that the chat is weighing in. All I will say, because I did think this was quite funny, is to contextualize it for people who are just now hearing about this very long running joke about this lemon thing.
It's
Is
not a
that
joke. It's very
not a
serious.
joke.
it's very serious. It's very serious. I was at dinner with my fiance's father, so my future father-in-law, and he completely like I don't even think it was like provoked in any way. Just starts talking about how lemons are like such a versatile fruit, and that if you were to like, they got to be one of the best fruits. Like he just starts like going on a rant about how good lemons are, and I was like, everything makes sense now. Like I'm understanding where this is coming from. I'm understanding, the influence. I lived under that roof for a little while, so clearly I was indoctrinated. But yeah, it was quite funny.
Radar,
So
what if I told you that it was not as innocuous as it seems? It wasn't serendipity. And we have him on the show today, and we're going to get into this. No, of course not. Here's one thing that I want to talk about is that I think that the lack of being able to eat it on its own really does hurt it, right? Utility is great, but there are a lot of fruits that are, do have utility that you can just pick up and eat, right? You can put banana in a lot of things. and you can just eat a banana on its own. I think in my mind, what like toes that line, what splits the difference between very versatile and easy to eat on its own, I think, is something that I have to say, mango. And of course, Mango is also a Melee player who's going to be at Battle of BC for this coming weekend. Radar, you are, I think that you started off as East Canada. Is that true? But now you're BC.
Yeah, I
So
was
this is your stomping
originally
grounds.
I was originally an Ontario person. I do still very much feel like I feel like a fraud when it comes to BC, I think, because of a variety of different reasons, I just haven't been as active like directly in the local BC Smash scene. You know, like a lot of it more recently was because of COVID. Before then, it was because of kind of brain injury stuff. And so, yeah, like I still definitely kind of the times where I was going to like multiple locals a week or going to locals every week was more in Ontario than BC. However, I'm still rep BC as my region now. I still like the people in the BC scene a lot, and I think a lot of people who go to Battle of BC will be in for a treat with this weekend. There's a lot of people like someone like Blur comes to mind as someone who said always wanted to go but never went. I think there's a lot of people like that who have heard good things but haven't actually had a chance to kind of check out Vancouver or check out that scene. So I'm really ahead of time, hoping it lives up to those expectations. Unfortunately, the weather is not looking good. It's going to be like really weirdly cold, and I can already see Americans going like, "Whoa, it's so cold here in Canada!" Like so. But who would
Canada
do
not
that?
beating
Right?
the cold allegations. This isn't your first Battle of BC, right? This isn't your first Battle of BC.
No, I actually yeah, sorry. I went to 2 and 3, I believe. Definitely I've been to at least 2, so it has to be 2 and 3. I wasn't at 1.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like we've talked about it on here before. Kind of like a buyer's market. That fits into that. But Battle of BC is something where it seems to give this really great experience for the people who go. And it's things like this. It's like what used to be Full Bloom, what is now Battle of BC stuff. Tournaments like these that two different series. And I made it sound like the same series. I'm just saying Full Bloom isn't around right now. But like they're series that start really, really small. And if you look at the first one, it's just like completely different than what it grows up to be. But stuff like this is that's the stuff that I like have faith in, because when they are able to start small and people go to the first one and it's just like a small thing and they say I want to go to the next one, that snowballs, and then suddenly people just keep saying they want to go to it, and then we get situations like this where there are 5 or 6 top 10 players. Wizzy and Cody dropped out. There would have been even more stuff like that. Edwin, I know that you've never been. This has been kind of something where I feel like this is a next year tournament for us, right? Everything, it's
Yeah,
like, oh,
totally.
next year we'll go. It just hasn't been in the cards.
Yeah,
What do you think about LBC?
yeah. So funny you asked that, because I was gonna actually ask Radar another question about like the series, sort of like historically where it's trending and everything. So like whenever I look at Smash events that go from being regionals with a couple like or with like 2 or 3 really amazing out of state or out of region talent coming, and how it kind of like climbs up to being a major. Every time I look at that, I always try to think like, what makes this tournament different from other ones, right? And this is across the gamut of regionals, nationals, majors, whatever you want to call them, right? So the question I want to ask to you is like, if Smash Camps thing is exactly what it sounds like, as kind of like a tournament that you go to hang out with your buddies, like a camping trip with the Melee tournament attached to it. If the Big House and Genesis kind of have their place in the scene as like the super duper premier, competitive historical super majors, what do you think Battle of BC does differently from the other majors, or what do you think is its unique? What do you think is the unique? And I'm saying this because Wheat said the words buyer's market. What do you think is the unique ROI that comes from Battle of BC?
We got to get our catchphrases in early.
Yeah, like I think the thing is I don't feel like there's any specific thing right now that makes Battle of BC kind of like, there's not to call it like a gimmick, but something like Smash Camp is this very unique experience. It's like it's something that sets it apart from every other tournament. I wouldn't say Battle of BC is like that. I think the reason, maybe like if this answers the question, the reason I think Battle of BC is where it is now is largely because like Kevin Deere has an attitude of kind of like always sort of wanting to outdo himself and of course his team each kind of iteration, which is something a lot of TOs share and have in common. So, we'll of course get to it, I'm sure, at one point in this episode. But like, when I pitched the kind of the millionaire idea, he was like, sounds great. And he's like, that would be cool. Other tournaments, they haven't really done a live game show. Let's be the people to do a live game show. There was talk for a while about doing a live episode of the Mix Up, and like it just didn't end up happening. But he was like trying to make that happen as well. I think like when like the reason this event kind of has grown bigger, and obviously there's going to be a bunch of different factors, is like he was networking with people a lot. He was saying like going to Summit and stuff and saying like, hey guys, have you heard of Battle of BC? It's this really cool event. And like literally putting in like he's like the little old Victorian boy in a film that's like got extra read all about it, Battle of BC. Like he's passing out flyers about, you know what I mean? Like he's going the full distance to try to kind of make people aware of it. And it kind of feels like this is sort of the, maybe not do or die, but like kind of big stakes. Like, okay, do we live up to the hype this weekend? Because last Battle of BC and this Battle of BC, in terms of the talent pool, in terms of the number of attendees, in terms of so many different factors, like it's like night and day. We had Zayn back when he was not like the number one player in the world. Axe, SFAT, I believe S2J, like just a handful of good players at Battle of BC 3. And now, like you mentioned, obviously Cody did drop out and Wizard also dropped out. But we have Leffen, Mango, Hungry Box, Zayn, like, J-Mook. We have so many people that like you want to watch play each other. I don't know. Like, I feel like I kind of went on a little ramble there, but yeah.
No, I mean, you talk about how it doesn't have a thing, right? I mean, most of these tournaments don't have a thing. Smash Camp is very unique in that sense, but its thing is it's in a great place, right? I've heard so many wonderful things about Vancouver, so many wonderful things about British Columbia, and it has a TO who is very visible, very known for wanting to put work in, and one of the few brands that has probably grown through COVID, right? I mean, you can argue that a lot of these tournaments, Big House, Genesis, or something like that, they didn't lose anything, but very few tournament brands actually grew like Gallant did. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I think every single year people watch and then they see what's going on, they see the experience, they see the fucking tweets from people just like, hey, we're here like chilling outside. It's great. Maybe the weather's not perfect for that. This because Canada's cold. I don't know if you know that, Radar. Canada is actually a lot colder than America.
First time I've ever heard it.
But yeah, I mean, just like word of mouth in these situations helps so much, because when you are someone like me or Edwin, right, who like we're going to try to go to things, but it's a very like finite number of things to go to. When you're like, fuck it, I'll go to this instead of SmashCon, right, or whatever. like it really has to be something special, and I think that Battle of BC has shown that. Let's talk about the millionaire thing. This is something that I was not involved in, but my blessing, I gave my blessing retroactively. I want to hear about what goes into this, because this is something that if you know Melee Stats, if you know like Radar and stuff, possible that this could be linked to us, right? The 5 days of Melee, that did really well. The Golden Guardians episodes that we did with them did really well. So like, what goes into a millionaire thing like this?
Anoke,
do you want to start this, or do you want me to jump?
Yeah, I can talk about it a bit. So Wheat, I mean, obviously you and Ambi did trivia segments for 5 days of Melee. Like you led the you two and like Radar like had the Jeopardy and the millionaire segments for that. eventually, like after that, I mean, like the way we approached a millionaire for a bit was just I think we did it for Genesis together, right, Radar? We did it for Genesis.
Genesis, yeah.
So I had some questions pre-prepared because I'd wanted to do something like a trivia segment for a while, but just literally never had the time. So I had pre-prepared like a ton of questions that were already categorized, both in terms of like what the questions entailed and what the difficulty level of the question was, right? So I think one of the things that was especially useful heading into this was not so much like coming up with ideas for the questions, but finding ways to like optimize them in the right order and to like make sure that they were fitting the contestant and like the audience, right? So I think like when we approach it for Genesis, a lot of the time is not spent so much like thinking of questions to put in as much as like finding ways to tweak what we had and seeing that if it worked for the contestant or if it was likely to work and through play testing it a lot, right? So like heading into the process with this, it was sort of similar. We had learned something from the Genesis experience, which is that we thought the Genesis boards were a little tough, and that was because the people that we play tested with and our approach to it was very like it was very tilted toward people who knew a lot, right? That were a bit like that had a bit more knowledge for the type of questions that we had than the contestants we had in Genesis. Now the Genesis questions I thought were very good. I thought the show ran well and everything. But heading into this one, because it is a live show, we wanted to go for something that would kind of milk the live atmosphere a little more, right?
Tell me more about this milking, if you will.
Yeah, this weird phrasing. I don't know why I said milk, but but coming into it, we knew who the contestants were ahead of time. We had to change one of them on the fly, but in case you don't know, it's Moki and Hungrybox. So we wanted to pick a good variety of questions that like fit their general wheelhouse of knowledge, but were appropriate for the board and scaled accordingly well, right? So for playtesting on these boards, basically what we did is we reached out to a variety of people with different perspectives, right? So we reached out to nerds, we reached out to
Not me.
a few top players. Yeah, not you. You're a busy man, Wheat. We reached out to half nerds, TOs, top players, people who were not like BFFs with the contestants, but had a general idea of what they would know or what they wouldn't know, and if a question was too hard or too easy. Honestly, most of the time is spent like play testing and just making sure that what we had was what seemed appropriate for the board. So like just in general, I mean, I could talk about Melee trivia content and like what makes it really good, what makes good for good trivia content in general for a while. But something that we really want to like, Radar, I think you'll agree with me when I say this, is that like we want to make sure that like it feels fair in the sense that like it always feels rewarding if a contestant gets something right or if they get something wrong. Right. So like if a contestant gets something wrong early, it has to be more funny than it is disappointing. But like if it is disappointing and they get out early, then you have like 20 minutes left in the block, or the audience comes away thinking like, well, that was stupid. Like, why did I watch that? Right. So it was a tough balance between all of those that we had to do. But I think the boards we have are very good, and I think.
No, go ahead.
No, that's all I was going to say. Go ahead, Radar.
Yeah, I think I wanted to like even pull a bit further back and maybe because you're speaking to the sort of what the process was of like making it and that kind of thing, and that definitely like is a huge part of kind of the story about, I guess. But I think maybe even speaking about like why we kind of wanted to do it, I know Wheat sort of had mentioned like trivia segments have done well in the past. Everyone in this call has been involved in like there basically have only been stuff done by people in this call and like basically the Melee Stats people or me, or like I guess has Summit ever done trivia stuff? Didn't they do
Summit did trivia for the Smashers Circle, Smashers Island, whatever they called it, but that was written by me. So
yeah, exactly.
We go right back into this. I mean, we are not the first ones to do this, right? The modern incarnation of whatever you think of Melee trivia, that's a lot of us. But I'm sure you can go back and find, like, I bet Tafo did something way back when or whatever.
Sure. But the main thing is that, like, I feel like we haven't seen it ever done live. So the only thing that I was like really wanting to do, and I still feel like is what's like at stake, I guess, at Battle of BC is like, hey, these videos that we know do well, that we know people watch, that we know if you execute them properly and get the right talent and have really smart question writers like the two people in this call, you get people excited, get people watching. And so does that translate to a live format? I hope so. And we have a team that is like also equally invested. Like, do want to shout out Flashburn, one of the production people.
Of course.
Um, he told me that like he wants to use this game show as kind of like a proof of concept, and say like, hey, like let's just show that this is a good idea and that he can kind of do it well on his end. And I kind of feel the same. So it's one of the best things about it, I guess, is that like a lot of the people that are working on it, I think kind of believe in the show itself as like, hey, maybe this could be something that they do it at every event. And I personally would love to see it at every event. I like, working on it as much as I like watching it. And, I liked the Golden Guardian stuff. I liked all the Jeopardy stuff. It was a blast. So yeah.
I'd love to see that. I'd love to see what Jeopardy is going to be like this time. I'm gonna say, if this becomes a thing, that'll be amazing. No EE. Let's keep EE away from this. I think his track record with game shows has not been the best.
Yeah, probably not. Although I think in a live format, a little easier.
In a live format, harder to cheat. You're right.
Yeah, if I can say one thing, Radar, it was really awesome working with you on this. It was great working with Flashburn and everyone else. I feel like we work well. I feel like our approach is pretty good. I will say I'm excited to see Toph host it. I'm excited to see the contestants on the show as well. I am very jealous that all of you will be there in person, and that I'm really saddened that it was just not in the cards for me to be at Battle of BC this weekend. Mm-hmm. It's been like, I mean, I've talked about this with you, Radar, but like it's been my dream to like be a host for something like this. So I took our play test like super seriously in terms of treating it like an actual show. And hey, like if you come to Shine Radar, and I have to, I'll pitch this to She or Stock or whoever, and I would I'm so sad that I won't be there this weekend for Battle of BC. It like really breaks my heart actually, but I'm like very happy that you're going to be there and that like all these people will be there as well.
Absolutely. I think I can see why. Like I think even speaking as someone who was present for like a good chunk of the playtests, or did some playtesting myself, did some hosting myself. It's fun. It's definitely like, I think you'd be surprised how seriously even like the playtesters take it. Like they kind of get in the seat and they're kind of like, I want to be the guy that walks away here and does the whole board, gets all 15 questions. So yeah, I definitely wish you could have been there. And I'm really hoping it goes smoothly. Wheat, looks like you want to say something.
I always do. No, I think it's going to be really interesting. I think Toph's going to kill it as the host. But yeah, let's move on from being sad that we're not going to be there and talk about the people who are happy to see there, because this does have a very stacked lineup, right? Battle BC, as you mentioned before, has always done a pretty good job. I think even one or two had like SFAT and Leffet. It was like very, even from the get-go, had a very good cast of players. But this one, man, it really puts everything to shame. We talked about all the top players. Even further than that, right? We've seen events that have all the top players. They all get like flown out or whatever. And then there's like some guy who gets like 9th place. And it's like, who is this guy? That's not the case here, because the level of talent scales so well, right? You look at the top 8 seeds, some of the best, players in the world, probably all top 10 level players. But you go down from there. I think honestly, all the top 32 are probably top 100-ish level, right? Maybe some of them are local threats and not like guaranteed to get top 100, but the level of talent here is really, really stacked. So we've got a lot of people here We've got a lot of Canadian players, both from obviously BC. We've got some Ontario players here. We've got Sunse, who I think is living in Alberta at the moment. We've got a lot of representation from Canada, but we also just got a lot of really cool players from Pacific Northwest and otherwise. Like when you look at a bracket like this, it's really open in my opinion, because you've got all of these people who can just, they can make upsets, they can make large runs. We've seen almost everyone here have tournaments where they have big runs, online or offline. Edwin, is there like a player or players who like they stick out to you as someone to look out for at this event?
Yeah, there's quite a few. It's hard to pick just one. Depends on. So one of the things you mentioned is that like this event is like pretty stacked at the very top level. I think it has a lot of depth as well. But the thing is that the depth is quite interesting because a lot of the at least specifically with regards to like the British Columbia players, these guys are all like very good, but they beat up on each other a lot, which makes it kind of difficult to assess how they would do in a national field. Except for like the few TMTs, I guess, that they like attend online. But guys like Amrak, Polo,
Elliot.
Yeah, Elliot also. I mean, Elliot, this is someone that we, for whatever it's worth, we did see Elliot take an online set over Hungrybox. I don't know how rare that was when it happened, but that's someone who I believe in his potential a lot to be a threat to top 100 players, if not top 100 on its own. I think Amrak and Polo are particularly very strong. Even the infamous loser of a best of 100 to Plup, Unruly, is a player from BC who I think is Unruly's from BC. That's been kind of like making waves in online brackets lately. So I'm curious if he can pull it together for this one. And then like above those guys, I mean, again, like I'm just speaking groups of people. This is not like if I don't mention someone's name here, like don't get mad at me. But then you got like a list of guys who like I think if they were a normal ranking in 2021 or like even now that was top 100, these guys would be clean top 100. So I'm talking your Sunse's, I'm talking Zuppies, I'm talking Swift, who frankly might be like Swift might be frankly like the best Pikachu.
Top 30 or something, right? Like we have not, we haven't seen a lot of Swift, but what we have seen of Swift, especially at the function, I know Pound was a little bit of a letdown from what we've expected from all these high expectations, but the function, Swift is amazing.
I mean, these are guys that like a year ago we were saying like, oh yeah, they could be top 100 in a normal year. Well, this is 2022. We're about like 6 months through the year. It's like if there was a top 100 now, this is like it's not a question that these guys would make the list. Like they would be like forget top 100, they would be like clean top 50 out of like forever that's worth in the field of activity. So I think like for a lot of these players, it can be their chance. Like we've seen them have moments in the year where they've grabbed big wins. Like with Zuppy in particular, he kind of started off with a bit of a weak Genesis. And then he came back with like a very strong. He had a very good performance at the nightclub. Then the function 2, he beat Aklo. Kind of a seesaw function 2 where he lost to Scherzo just outside of top 8. But generally, like the kind of performance that you want to see from someone who like really experienced like a massive jump in his results and like kind of translating that into the format of Melee that really matters. So that's someone who we could look out for. I think generally the whole like
give Radar something, man. You're taking everyone.
Yeah, sorry. I did a huge like breakdown of all the players that I found most interesting entering this event.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
So, no fault for you going on because anyone would want to talk about all these people.
Yeah, I mean like the last guy I would mention as someone that I think is interesting to look out for is oh god, I already mentioned Swift, right? Actually, no. Sorry, the last person I want to mention is Toussaint. Toussaint, this is the storyline that has somehow happened over the last like month and a half, and nobody's been paying attention to it because they're too busy celebrating BBAT's victory at Creed. But Toussaint, high key over the last month and a half, has been the best active player in the Northeast. They have just dominated almost every nightclub that they've gone to, just like beating a field of like pretty tough players, right? So I'm actually like very, very excited to see how Toussaint does at this event. They have just like really been killing it in New York. And outside of that one tourney to BBATs and I think another nightclub that they finished in second at, they've just like been super on a tear. I've been very impressed with them. Okay,
Toussaint is a really great pick. Before the YouTube comments come and say Radio Melee is more, whatever. I'm gonna balk on this claim that they're the best player in the Northeast because IBW is also the Northeast.
Okay, yeah, like active regional
Actively,
player.
yeah, locally.
Who knows? Maybe in New York. Who knows how?
Well, that's the thing with Toussaint, right? Toussaint has been a very odd player for most of their career, right? Most of their Melee career, they have struck me as someone who they're able to go to events, and the bigger the event, it's like disproportionate with how well they do. Because I have seen them at events. I think one great example is See Me on Land 2 or 3 or whatever. There's a See Me on Land where they went, and Fiction and Ginger went. Fiction and Ginger were at the time and still are extremely great players, right? Top 15 level, top 20 level. And I think Toussaint ended up losing the event, but took sets off of each of them or something like that. Maybe traded sets with both of them. And I was like, no, this seems right. Like, this seems right to me. But Toussaint's bigger events, right? The big houses and Genesis that they go to aren't really up to snuff with what we've seen from them locally. And you have these events where, yeah, I mean, they lost to B-Bats. They got pretty destroyed by B-Bats. I think they went Fox. Shades of them going Fox versus Cool Line Pound. Like, there's a lot of instances of this, but they're a player who I think always is able to do well at events where, I mean, I think if they're one of the higher seeds, I think they're always able to do well and punch up well. Bigger events, it's a little scarier. So this is kind of an interesting thing to see. Radar, I know that Edwin has listed every person in the top 16 or whatever. Are there any players who stand out to you as players who are like able to make a big run here?
Yeah, there are a couple. So I was looking at the seeding. I think one that I'm curious just from like a local kind of BC representation thing, because I think most people would agree that like at an event where you don't have to deal with like jet lag or travel or any of those things, that kind of is like a natural buff, even if it's not like the most impactful thing. I think it always helps like that you just drove down the street to get to the event. And I think Polo is someone who has done well at events locally. I think has a style that like is kind of like a good balanced approach to Falcon, and I feel like will, because it's that way, will be maybe more consistent, will maybe kind of like throw people off even on a bad day, because he's just a very good player. So I think if I had to guess, like I think like when people talk about like say BC for example, a lot of people are familiar with Elliot or the Weapon. I don't know if that's still a thing, but I see Elliot in chat, so Elliot can clarify. But everyone knows Elliot. I think Polo is like a name maybe people don't know as much that they should. So that's someone who I think could do really well. I'm trying to think specifically who would be upset in that situation, but I do think especially after it was, I believe Champions of Vancouver was the name of the tournament. It was a tournament back last August, and Polo came second to Sunsei. So I think Polo could do well. I think I agree. Like Toussaint has just been kind of dominating Nightclub, so it's hard to say. It's hard to say it would be shocking even to see Toussaint just take sets versus people, especially like Puff. Always kind of like not a hard character to prepare for, but a character that forces you to be good at a different play style sometimes. So yeah, Toussaint. I also would probably say Zuppy, except Zuppy doesn't even really feel like that controversial of a pick either. Like I think Zuppy is just like a very, very good player. So if Zuppy gets good results, if Zuppy were to beat like S2J or something, it would be like wow, but it wouldn't be like spit out your drink crazy, So yeah, I think those would probably be my 3 picks.
First off, I love what you said about Elliot, how everyone knows Elliot, but no one knows Polo. I want to live in this world where everyone in Melee knows Elliot.
Okay, not everyone. I mean, like
we're in this
with regards to BC, I think he's the most well-known player. He beat HBox,
It's really interesting, right? We talked about Amrek, we talked about Polo, the Weapon, of course, Elliot himself. SB, who I believe formerly was number one in BC, maybe before pandemic. We have all these players who I think are really, really good, and everyone's right. It's like it's hard to tell how good they are because they just like they all beat each other. They all like have these, they all like are good versus each other. You look at tournaments and it's like really hard to grasp like who's actually like what their skill level is on a larger scale. But I think any of them could do well. I'm gonna pick a player who we haven't mentioned yet. I'm gonna pick a player someone who in the end of 2021 I think was someone who people were talking about a lot, and it's been a bit of a quiet year. We saw them at Smash Camp. We saw them at the one of the most cursed brackets of all time, the Summit 13 VIP. I'm going to talk about Zealot because Zealot is a player who, if he's going, because I know he was signed up for Genesis and then just never went. If he's going to this, I think he's really able to take names. He is one of those players where, like, it's this old style. It's against this old style. Sorry, there used to be a style of Fox. When I got into the game, maybe I was just dumber and like I dumbed things down. But I remember back in the day, 2014, when I got into the game, it was like very possible that you're like, yeah, no, this is a Fox who's good at the Ditto, and this is a Fox who's good versus floaties, right? And I feel like to be good now, you just got to be good versus everyone. I think Zealot is someone who I imagine like that. Really, I wouldn't say that Zealot has any matchups where I'm like, yeah, that's really scary for him, right? He ended up losing to Rishi at Summit 13, which that's like a nonsense result. One, it's Summit VIP bracket, and also how good is Rishi right now, right? There's just like no barometer for this. But he is someone who, if we see a full year of results, I honestly think top 50, possibly higher, because that style of Fox that he plays, the style of Box Fox, very consistent. And someone like that with that level of consistency, you go to enough events, maybe you don't end up getting, a big run to 9th at Big House or something, but you rack up 17ths and 13ths and 25ths. And by the end of the year, you are really someone to be a force to be reckoned with. And that's what I look at when I look at Zealot.
I've heard all the Sheik, all like the really good Sheik players complain about dealing with Zealot on the ledge and getting blown up when he's on the ledge. Yeah, so I think if we're talking about like players with upset potential, there's like a sleeper pick heading to this event that I when we were talking about players, just outside like the top 10 of the current field, just someone who I think is like a really good sleeper pick. I don't he didn't really have a great Genesis. He didn't have a very good pound either, and he actually had a pretty underwhelming Smash Summit 13, but he did take a set off Jmook. So I think someone that we could see make a really big upset at this tournament and surprise people is Mango. I think he could return with a resounding performance here.
That's the kind of the big question, right? When you talk about upsets, it's this kind of nebulous thing that we say, right? We're picking people who we think are good. And then there's a whole other equation to the upset, right? Because you have to beat a player who's better than you. Otherwise, it's not an upset. And Mango is kind of one of those people who is really good. We all know he's good. Honestly, insane that we say that he's top 10-ish instead of saying definitively top 10. But he is kind of a person who might have a target on his back for events like this. He's seated 8th here. He's seated below Moki. I think he's probably, at that level. I think that was done to avoid like the 3rd HBox set in like a month or whatever. But like there's definitely reasons for it. And when I look at his path, it is something where, you know what, I feel pretty good about it. This was kind of an event that it's like tailored for the Mango comeback, right? Like if you were to pick an event where Mango comes back resoundingly, it's this one. He doesn't have to face like Fiction or Lod, like Pound or whatever. Maybe his Fizzwiggle loss doesn't bode well for this, but honestly, I think that his chances of getting upset in pools is pretty low. Eric, formerly known as Naren, super good Fox, but that's a comfort matchup. You get SFAT, who he lost that set at Summit 12, but he did just beat him at Genesis and Losers, right? Like, and he's always done pretty well versus SFAT, with the exception of a few sets here and there. So I think that's good. And then you've got Zane, who we've talked about. Zane, Mango, I think in any given chance has one of the best chances to beat Zane. Mango, I also think, has one of the worst chances to beat Zane consistently. Right? Like we used to talk about, I think there's a question on the show where it was like, rank these people in the order that they're able to beat Zane: Mango, IBW, Leffen, and Plup. And I think if it's just take one set, Mango's really high. But if it's take two sets at two tournaments, or it's stuff like that, I think that's really hard. But that's not what we're looking at, right? You know, it's a one chance opportunity. He's got something like this. He would have a pretty decent bracket from there. You know, that is, if he beats Zane, that's a better place than he's had at any major this year. And if he loses to Zane, he's got most likely S2J, I believe, which, talk about comfort matchups, right? We've seen him lose sets to none, and like we've seen the Wizzy sets at SCL. But it's not that time for me to say that Mango is about to lose to S2J. So if the question is, will Mango be upset? I think that this is a pretty good bracket for him to not get upset. I think he can make top 8. Maybe in top 8, maybe someone sneaks in there, and that's a hard person for him, right? You know, like if he plays Swift in top 8, that could be hard. Or if he plays, you know, like there's a couple different players who he could play in top 8. But yeah, I mean, this might be Mango's first top 8 of the year, and I feel pretty confident in saying that this is, you know, if there is one this year, and I hope there is, I think this is the one. Radar, what do you think?
Yeah, so I thought a lot about this. I think worth mentioning, up until literally last weekend, I had never commentated a Mango set. And I was blessed with Mango's Zelda at the charity tournament that Brandon ran last weekend. So that was my first time commentating a Mango set. So I'm really, really, really hoping that Mango makes top 8 and I get to commentate Mango in top 8, because that just sounds amazing. As to do I think that will happen, I feel like the answer is yes. I feel like when I look at the people below him, I think the odds of him beating the people below him, like, you know, being number 8 himself, like I think he beats all those guys. I think he beats SFAT. I think he beats SUJ. I agree that Swift is probably the most challenging player there. I think he beats Sora, Toussaint, Eddie Mexico, etc. Like, you go down that list, I don't think any of those guys really present like a huge roadblock. So to me, it's more a question of like, does he get out at like 7th or something, or does he continue on? Because as soon as you go up that list is where it starts to feel like we just saw him lose to Kadoran. I think Moki, like, I'm really hoping Moki has a good run. Moki like really likes Vancouver. I think, you know, someone who's going to like have a lot of friends out here, be really comfortable, that always helps you play well. He might come off of a hot run at Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. That always boosts your confidence.
True.
So, you know, Moki, Kadoran, could they beat Mango? Definitely. Leffen, could he beat Mango? Of course. Amsa, of course. Jmook, like, I think so. So, HBox, you know, like, so I think it's going to be tough afterwards, but I would be pretty shocked, to be honest, if he didn't make top 8 here.
Yeah. You know what? Mango, I think right now is a player who has a lot of people who can beat him. You mentioned all these people, and it's like, yeah, no, that sounds right. All those people, I think, have a decent chance of beating him. You know, 40% chance, 50%, 60% chance, whatever it is. And I feel like it's always been like this with Mango. You'd always have those random, you know, tournaments where he'd go and lose to Flipsy or whatever. But I think that this has just gotten to a point where we really haven't seen yet. But yeah, I mean, if there's a tournament where he's going to do well, I really think it's this. You mentioned Moki. I want to talk about this really quickly because Moki S2J is a very interesting set. Moki, I think, is an incredible player. And on the flip side, S2J, someone who's been amazing for such a long time, right? Top 15 for years, top 10. Remember, we had that point where we said he was the 3rd best player in North America, which feels insane now. But what he's been doing in the past, you know, we talk about Toussaint as the guy, you know, they're doing it over there in New York. S2J is kind of doing the same thing in SoCal. S2J the past few weeks, he has been kind of the guy. He's been beating Kadoran. He's been beating Fiction. I think he did just have a local where he unfortunately lost to West Balls. But West Balls always has that, right? He always has his one.
Yeah. He has like one every 6 or so weeks, maybe 12 weeks, and then it's back to
it's back
else.
to losing to PhD's nuts or something, right?
Yeah.
But honestly, like what S2J has been doing has been very good, and also just consistent enough to me where I feel comfortable saying that like this is not a fluke, right? Is he back? Is this top 10 S2J? Is he better than Nunn and Kadoran and all these people and Lod and all these people who we consider top 10? Probably not. At least not yet. But I really feel confident that we see him, we put him in versus Moki. I think that's a really coin flip matchup. But like this is something where I think he could do far if he avoids Mango, because this bracket, if he doesn't avoid Mango, is very hard. But if he does, I think he could make a run. Edwin, what do you think?
Yeah, I think S2J Moki is actually quite interesting because when I saw that in bracket, so in my like preview for this week, I didn't do so much a 16 player ranking as much as just I wanted to write about the 16 players that I thought were most interesting. But for my top 8, I did have to make my top 8 picks. So I just went with S2J over Moki, and people asked me why I picked S2J over Moki. They should have been asking why I picked Wizro because he ended up not going. But so in hindsight, I kind of feel bad that I didn't write about Moki. But I think those two actually have quite a bit to prove at this event because we've seen glimpses where they look like amazing, right? You mentioned that S2J has been cleaning up SoCal, both, coincidentally during Fiction's trip to Germany, but also even when Fiction came back. So I think S2J is like kind of slowly regaining his mantle or making a case for being the king of SoCal, right? With Moki, I mean, this is someone that we knew it was online, so not 1-to-1 with offline. We saw him get third at the biggest online at the biggest tournament ever. We saw Moki destroy Hungrybox online. Like what,
Very
5 sets, 6 sets? We've seen him be a really tough opponent for IBDW in the Fox Ditto. We haven't seen him fully challenge the Zane yet in like a meaningful tournament, but who knows if he could make it close there. We've really just seen him. We've seen him show moments of such brilliance where like he doesn't even just look clean top 10. He looks like someone where it's like, if we're going to consider, Lod a threat to get fourth at like a super major or potentially take sets off top 5 players, like Moki is absolutely, by the eye test, in glimpses that we've seen of this year, we've seen him reach that caliber. We haven't quite seen it all come together for a really big offline performance, but it could happen here, which is what I think is really interesting because it's almost like he and Johnny have taken very different paths, but they're kind of at like a crossroads now where it's like, this could be the end of the first half of the year, right? Like, is this going to be Johnny's like big offline comeback where even if he doesn't look like, the former number 3 in NA where he looks top 10 again? Or is this where we see like Moki show us that his online dominance over Hungrybox was for real and going to carry over to this one, and we see him make a deep top 8 run? I think that matchup between those two, it's kind of like two players in kind of, very twisting paths to where they are, but whoever will win that, I think could be due for like a very big performance at this event.
Of course. Radar, I want your opinion on this, but real quick. I think Moki is always kind of this person who has to prove this. And maybe it's a bit of a Canadian thing. Even though it's still all North America, I do feel like the burden is on international people to prove that they're still relevant. Not rest on their laurels, right? Like it definitely feels like something that we don't really give to people who are as active in America. That being said, Moki's about to go to Battle BC. Moki's about to go to Gommel. I believe signed up for Double Down as well. So this idea of Moki, we haven't seen it recently. Maybe that'll go away. I also think that he has had some pretty good bracket runs at some tournaments recently. It's just, when you are an international player and it's hard for you to get out to stuff, it's kind of a what have you done for me lately scenario that some people see. And if you haven't seen his name recently, that hurts. Also, both of these tournaments that he did pretty well at, Genesis and Function, Genesis 8 and Function 2, I guess, to be specific, were both pretty big losers runs. He got upset and winners in both of those. And when you have big events like this, they really don't have the bandwidth to be able to stream like a ton of losers. So
Mhm.
if you just like asked a bunch of people, hey, what place did Moki get at Genesis 8? I don't think people really know, because most of that's in losers. It's very possible that he got top 16 at Genesis without ever having a stream set. Like that's kind of just how it is when you make a huge losers run and something like that. So I definitely think that he is in this weird position where he has the results. He has the results online, definitely. But he's kind of always this person who, for the bulk of his career, it feels like has had roadblocks, and every time we see one of those, we just go like, we like clean. It's like a clean slate, right? And it's just like, he's complained about seeding before, and I think there's a very real reason, because he is put in situations where there's like he doesn't get the benefit of the doubt. So Radar, my question to you is do you think what is the reason behind this? Do you think is there a larger thing? Is it because he's Canadian? I know it's with Canada in 2021. I know it was hard for people to go to events in America. What do you think's behind this idea of Moki always kind of like falling back in people's minds?
I mean, I think it is kind of just sort of as simple as you're saying. Like, there's the fact that he's from a different country than most of the players, the fact that he's not going to as many events as some other players. COVID in particular prevents him from playing a lot of events in the same way that we had from other people. I also think, like, not to go too like the character, like talking about spacey propaganda, I guess, but I do think that like you kind of get spacey players playing, like they tend to be a bit more inconsistent than some other players. Like, at least it feels that way. I could be wrong. So I think all those things kind of work against him. And I think if we're being like honest with ourselves here, I think also Moki as a player is like a pretty emotional player. And sometimes kind of like that sort of mentality issues kind of get the best of him. So I think sometimes he doesn't like deliver or kind of fails to live up to those expectations. And all of those things together like can kind of create this negative PR and this negative perception around him. I'm really hoping that an event like this and an event like GOML, again, where he's not even going to have to travel for it, will be the thing that kind of breaks that, because I feel like what we've been seeing, and I'm not having intimate conversations with Moki. I'm not learning like where he's at mentally, but he's tweeting stuff like, feeling like I'm in a good place in life. Really, stream has been popping off, doing well. I'm really motivated to play. It's always really good when you hear someone say that. He seems really excited for the social side of Battle of BC, which is like just being happy, for some players is like all they need to just suddenly pop off and go crazy. So I think like, a lot of the reasons we just gave are the reasons why people think that. And if he can just have like a little bit of a stretch, a run where he sort of, delivers on those expectations, maybe it's gone forever. Like, it's weird how impressions
And I
work,
think if he's able to get past S2J, or get past whoever comes before S2J as well, if we're talking about getting upset, him versus HBox, I think that's a really good draw for him. I think that's something where he can make it into winter semis, and then from there maybe Jmook or something like that. I think that's a very doable matchup, even though I think Moki was one of the first marquee wins that Jmook got at
I think Moki
what was it called? Four Loco Fight Night.
I think Moki actually beat him. Like, he was the one that cooled off the Jmook train.
Was it? It was like he beat Aklo and all of that beforehand. I could have sworn that Jmook had an online Moki set, but I guess this is what makes us a worse podcast than Radio Melee. Anyway, let's talk about the big picture here, right? Because we're talking about all these players who can do well. Let's talk about who can win. Because when it comes to an event like this, it's something that we talk about every now and then, but I think it's a really fun conversation. And that like all these small events, as we're seeing them, or big events, right? They're really a part of a bigger thing. And I know that Melee has had a 20-year history. 21 years or whatever we're at whatever we're coming to, but these events, they stack up and they mean something, right? So when you talk about the legacy, it's like we're really living it. And I think that Zane is a player who we talked about before after Pound and Genesis, as a player who is making a run for one of the most dominant years of Melee, right, that we've seen, and after Summit, I think those ideas have kind of cooled off a little bit, but this is a question, right? We have a completely different event than Summit. We have an open bracket event. Is this an event where we see Zayn bounce back. Edwin, what do you think about Zayn's chances to do this? And I mean, if you want to talk about his like stance in history right now too, I think he's on the precipice of having a really historical year, or just like a really high jump in what we think of him in general.
Yeah, so let's why don't we start with that latter point just really quickly. He finished last year within the Melee Stats panel for the top 100. He finished number 9 of all time. So this would position him below Leffen, PP, and Azen, right? Just based on how our list turned out. Since then, he, for whatever you want, however way you want to count it, he won LACS 4. If you don't want to count that, he won Genesis, and he won Pound after that. So that's 2 more majors, and it's very likely that he will finish this year with at least another major or 2, which would basically like protect a number 1 spot, which would be huge for his legacy. It would put him among the ranks of people who could have been considered number 1 for like a whole year if he isn't there already, along with people like Mango, Armada, Hungrybox, Ken, and Mewtwo King. In fact, I would be willing to say that, depending on how the rest of the year turns out, we could see Zayn, in a year and a half, maybe even past Ken as the greatest Marth ever. He could do it. He has to do it, though. And will another step happen at Battle of BC? I think among everyone else in the field, I do think that, like, if you look at the odds and you broke down each player one by one, I think he is just so rock solid against the field, and he is more or less at worst competitive with his peers in top 8, right? So if you go by matchup, I mean, like it's very clear that this guy like has a better advantage overall than anyone else that could threaten him. So like just going down the list for a second, HBox, he has that guy's soul right now. Is it impossible that HBox could beat him? No, but he needs everything to go his way, or he needs to show us something new, right? That would fundamentally break the trend. So that's someone he has on lockdown. Jmook, okay, we're starting to get into the scary people, but 2 of their last 3 sets, is Jmook going to start just like washing Zayn? I don't think so yet. I think right now the default is that Zayn should still be considered to have that. Then you get into Leffen and Amsa, 2 people that we think can be, or when you get to Leffen, who I see in a similar right to Jmook, someone, he hasn't shown us the ability to just like consistently dominate him, but he's shown the ability to like scare him and to take for whatever it's worth in an exhibition, to beat him cleanly, right? That he can do that. I don't know if he'll do that the majority of time, but he can do that. You go down the list like that, and like kind of you go into your Amsas, you go into your and as far as like Battle of BC is concerned, you go into like the Foxes, and then you go to Mango, who we talked about being kind of like someone that we think has a great individual chance of taking a set off Zayn, but we don't know will ever go like just fully positive forever or whatever. Now, with all that said, I think this event in particular is very hard for him. I think it's very hard, not just because of the talent present, that they're not like free gimmies. I think playing Mango in Winner's Quarters is terrifying. I think if you're a Mango, you love that. You love coming in as the number 8 seed, down on your luck, playing against the one guy you spent all of last year preparing for. I think you love that if you're Mango. I think if you're Zayn, that's horrifying. And it's especially scary because if Zayn loses to Mango, it's very likely that for 9th place, he could be playing SJ. And this is someone who, again, I would never say that SJ is favored over Zayn, but the ability to actually take a set already makes him so much more threatening than like another Fox player or another Falco player that Zayn could be playing in that spot. So will Zayn bounce back at this event? I think he's very likely to, but I also think this event is kind of uniquely tough for him in the fact that he might be running into like one of his top 2 hardest opponents early on in bracket, and having to manage that with having to prepare for the Sheiks, with having to prepare for like I think he has Hungrybox on lockdown, but everybody is still gunning for him too, So I don't know, man. I think he's likely to bounce back, but at the same time, I don't know if it'll come at this event for sure.
I can't hear Weed right now.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
This is a bit
What
of
do
a
you got?
bounce back tournament for him. Wait, that's not what I was about to say. I said something different when I was muted. This is a statement tournament for him because this is a chance to prove that he's still number one, still definitively number one. I talked about whether or not he he went to 3 events. This is really dumb to talk about, but how dominant of a year he's having, and whether or not this is something that could be an all-time dominant year. And Edwin, I've got a question for you. I know that you talked about his ability to overtake Ken. I think that's very possible. I think that's well within Zane's ability in the next few years. But if Zane is able to have in a year like I don't know, like Armada's 2017 or H Bucks' 2017 or something like that, or like Armada's 2016. Take whatever year you want to say. If he's able to have a year where he's winning majority of events, how do you weigh that versus these historic years that we've seen? Because right now, maybe I'm wrong. I feel like the field is completely different, right? When it was 2015 and Armada put up one of the best years of all time, I honestly think that the number of people who could win a major was a lot smaller than it is now. So I think if Zane is able to continually get number one at these events, get first place, take home gold, I think that is impressive. And do we have to weigh the talent accordingly? Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because like one of the things I was pretty sure heading into the pandemic, and this like just looking at the numbers, it really holds up, right? So even from the MLG era to like 2018 or so, there are always like 5, maybe 6 players that like their presence at a tournament would basically dictate whether it's a major or not, right? Like, and it's quite remarkable. Like no matter what generation we've been in, there's always been 5 or 6 people that have been considered like that basically defined majors or won them, right? And like this went from when we were having 200-person nationals being considered groundbreaking to when we were having 2,000-person super majors, right? That was one thing that I always thought was very bizarre about Melee history. Now it seems like we're in a period of transition where we're not really sure who those 5 are. Those 5 honestly feel like 8. they feel like
a lot of people.
Or 9. But there's also like people where like Mango is a really good example of this, right? Like Mango, if you ask me what his chances of winning a major are in 2022, I think they're cleanly higher than someone like Nuns or Cadorans or even Lod, right? Like I think I'm going into the year like thinking that, and I still think that now. But if you ask me how good is Mango's year and where does he finish on a ranking, this is someone who's not top 10 right now by the results, right? So I think we're kind of in a weird era, but I think over the next like 2 or 3 months, we're going to start to see things make a little more sense. And my prediction is that by the end of the year, I think there'll be like 6 or 7 people who could be considered in that tier of winning a major. It'll be kind of like 2019 was in that sense. Yeah. But I think I think it'll have a little bit more order to it.
Radar, what do you think on all of this?
Yeah, so I guess the main topic is like, well, to start is will Zane bounce back? I mean, like even the wording to me seems a bit weird because it feels like he like bouncing back. Like, isn't he still kind of like the number one player? Like, it feels like bouncing back from a upset at Smash Summit. I guess. Like, is that the idea?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to someone like him, right? You have different criteria, right? If Armada got 5th at an event, then that's something where it's like, oh wow, where does he go from here? Now, of course, we're talking about Zane as if he's Armada, which maybe are we right to that? I don't know. That's the big question here. But yeah, I mean, he had an event where he like Salt took him to game 5. He lost. He dropped a set to Lod. He lost to J-Mook, right? He lost to Plup. Like he lost to these people who he did very well against recently. So I do think that maybe bouncing back is a little harsh. He's still definitively number one in my mind, but I think he's more on the precipice than we. Yeah,
he's on the precipice
than he was before.
You put it so well on the I think last week or 2 weeks ago when we think of Zane and the kind of potential that he has. Well, the reason that we're saying like bouncing back is because we're not holding him to the expectation of necessarily just finishing the year at number one. We're holding him to the expectation of like in 2 years when we or maybe not 2 years, maybe we'll wait a little longer, and maybe in 5 years this is a top 2 player of all time or top 3, right? Like that's the kind of So it's both. It is admittedly unfair because there's no one else in the field right now that we would hold to that kind of potential future standard. But there's also a good reason for it, right? So it's not even like that it's being unfair. It's more like he's playing a different game than a lot of the
Yeah,
current
yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess like
sorry, go on.
I guess, so we talked about this a bit before yesterday when we were working on the millionaire stuff, and I think it's a good time to kind of bring it back up now of like who is your pick to actually win the tournament? And I at the time said HBox and not Zane.
Wow.
Which why the wow? I'd like to hear why is that so
No,
shocking?
I want to hear why you picked HBox. I think this is insane.
Okay, so
you've got my attention, Mr.
I'm going to acknowledge that number one, like I'm not the most public about it, but I'm not the biggest HBox fan, right? I'm not here going like I really hope my boy HGod wins,
Let's go on.
I respect him as a player so much. He is so talented and does a lot for the game. And I think he in his own way, like we look at like will Zane bounce back? I feel like HBox has that question, but replace Zane with will I bounce back? Will I be the number one player again? How do I get to that path? And he tweets stuff like after Pound, he kind of goes like, hey, we're going to start seeding me better because I'm getting like consistently good results. I'm like, you know what I mean? And so I think there's I think he's going to put a lot of pressure on himself. And I actually think when he puts pressure on himself, he tends to deliver lately, maybe not as much, but like, I think he has a pretty good chance against a lot of people. I actually agree upon like thinking about it, watching their old sets, that Zane is his biggest hurdle by quite a lot. But I just watched him beat Jay Mook pretty solidly twice, like in two back-to-back sets. I think he can definitely beat Amsa. I think Leffen will be tough. I think he's favored versus Godoran. I think Moki could be tough, but it's like if Moki doesn't beat HBox, no one's like, what? So I feel like there's a very legitimate path to HBox winning. And I think to someone asking in the chat, like, what does HBox get if he wins Battle of BC? I think he wants to like return to form. He wants to shut down conversations like this about Zane being in his own tier and be kind of like in that conversation for number one player. And I firmly do not think that he is in that conversation at all. But I don't know, like my gut feeling, maybe it's just pessimistic and being like, I'm going to have to commentate HBox winning some games. But like,
pessimistic. You get to watch HGod return to the throne.
Exactly. He'll dominate millionaire and then he'll dominate top 8. But like in a way that would be interesting. And I actually I would enjoy just seeing him kind of sort of do what he's known for. So that's my like kind of like dangerous pick. Like I recognize that it's not like the safe one. I think Zane, I just have a feeling that Zane will be upset by someone and then HBox will have a smooth path to victory. And I feel like the fact that IBW isn't here, Wizrobe isn't here, like there's certain people that were like more obvious roadblocks, even though we haven't seen Wizzy play for a long time, or like one more thing that was kind of keeping HBox down, and they're no longer in the picture. So I don't know. I like his chances.
Radar. I like this. This is an interesting pick. I don't agree, but I do like it. HBox, I think, has the biggest chance of getting second here. I think HBox does not have the biggest chance of getting first place. I think that he's not even second most likely to get first place. I think Zane is so hard for him. And you're right. When you look at the obstacles that he has in whatever given bracket path, the scariest ones, a lot of them aren't here. IBW, I think, IBW and Zane are a big reason why saying HBox is going to win a major is going to be a tough one. Because if they are on opposite sides of the bracket, if they're 1 and 2 seed, right, like they currently probably would be, that is hard. Because that means you most likely have to play them in order to get to winners finals or grand finals. And in a situation like that, that's tough. And you're right. He doesn't have that. He just has Zane. But I think Zane is so tough for him that even if Zane gets sent to losers, I still believe that Zane, claws his way back up, and maybe we get a situation we've never seen, right? Zane resetting from losers. We haven't really seen that a lot. It's usually the opposite. But yeah, I think HBox is an interesting pick because he is someone who it was like Very cool to say he was bad, and man, it was cool. It was fun.
It was really fun.
It was
We
fun.
were having
when
a
he was
great
bad.
time. Yeah.
And then I think a few people kind of started noticing it before it was really a thing. But I remember going into Genesis and I was like, now he's good again. He's a good player. And yeah, I mean, he's proved that over the few events. I've said this on our podcast before, but Radar, I'm sure you don't listen to our wonderful podcast. He
I
sat
do
down
actually
next to me at
listen to
Summit.
it.
Okay, so do you know the story that I'm about to tell?
No, go ahead.
He sat down next to me at Summit and he had his fish tacos and he put down his plate of fish tacos. He said he's the second best player in the world right now. He ate the fish out of his fish tacos and then he left his trash there. So the kind of balls that a player has to have like that, the kind of confidence, I think that we're seeing an HBox who is getting seated second at big events, seated third behind IBW, stuff like this. And it feels like, when it was, if he was third seed at Summit, right, that kind of feels like, we've got no better option. But it's becoming, instead of no better option, it's becoming like he's actually the third best player in the world. And who knows, maybe he could be second best player in the world. We have to see that. I think he has a couple hurdles that he needs to do beforehand to show that. But yeah, in terms of people who could win, Edwin, what are your thoughts? I want to hear who you think is going to win this event.
I will go into
Oh
my
God,
pick.
you're also picking HBox, aren't you?
I don't know. I'll go into my pick in a bit. Who do you want to? I want you to go first.
I'll go first. This means that you're going to have a hot take. So normally, an event like this, little old Wheat would trot out his tired old thing about Leffen, this Leffen optimism, because I think Leffen's bracket is pretty damn good. AMSA, he of course lost to AMSA. Radio Melee knows this. We know this. He lost to AMSA, but he has historically done very well versus AMSA. Zane is probably a tougher opponent than Jmook or HBox on the other side, but Zane is a player who we still feel confident about his ability versus, or we feel confident in Leffen's ability versus Zane, even though we've yet to see it in like a LAN tournament set. I still think he could do it. And then whoever would be in winners finals, right? HBox, Jmook, Poki, whatever. I think all those are very doable. However, he's pulling an old controller thing right now. All of his controllers are bad. He's gonna have to get a controller at the event or something, right? There's this whole thing. So maybe this is the event that I finally jump off this Leffen optimism wagon, and maybe this is the time where it's to be on it. Maybe he wins after all this. But yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with the return of the king. In this case, the return of the king who won 2 tournaments this year. I'm gonna have to say Zane. Zane feels like a player who we talked about. This could be a tough event, but right, this is like what separates Zane as a top 5, possibly all-time player. From these other people, right? He is someone who we've really not seen when push comes to shove. We've not seen Zane do well. We've not seen Zane do well in some situations where he's sitting in grand finals winner's side. And I think that this is like, we talk about, we joked about earlier in the podcast about beating the allegations. He has not beaten the choker allegations just yet. But I think this is going to be a tournament that's going to solidify some of that, kind of assuage some of the doubts around his ability to perform in situations like this. I think that he has a bit of a tough bracket, but I don't know. I think that, when all the chips are down, I think that he is someone who I think he's going to show it. I don't really have like stats to back this up, right? I don't have history to say this, but I just have this feeling. I think Zane's going to do well, and I think that this is going to be a very quiet but like meaningful tournament where, like, I think if you just see him get number 1 here, a lot of people won't bat an eye. They won't think a lot of it. But for me, this would mean a lot. Coming off of a 5th place at Summit, having to play Mango probably in winners quarters, having a bracket that doesn't really have a lot of foxes in it, stuff like this, I think it's really small things. But if he wins this, it'd be a very big thing to me. It would, all the doubts I have, I'd feel a lot better about him. I'm going to have to pick Zane here. I know I very rarely pick the favorite because it's not fun, but I got a feeling about Zane here. Edwin, your
Can I
pick
just say
is
2 things?
I want to hear.
Okay, just one. I think just to reference the chat, I think Zayn wins this tourney from losers is like a very safe prediction. I feel like I would actually
I
be
think that's insane.
really okay. I think I'm feeling an upset. I don't know. Maybe I'm here in British Columbia now, and like I'm the Earth is telling me like what the future right now, and I can feel it. But I don't know. I could see it. But I agree that Zayn is the safe pick. Second thing with Leffen is that like I agree, man. Him tweeting those things makes me worried. I really want to see Leffen do well. You know
Yeah.
how people talk about like the expression like 1 foot in the grave? I feel like Leffen has like 1 foot in the Twitter, man. Like he's just like it's like whenever he's playing, you can kind of imagine him constructing the tweet as he's playing. Like you can visibly see him getting more frustrated or see it in game. And I just want it to not happen. I want to see Leffen do well. I want these Twitter days to be over, but that's my mini rant. Go wild.
It's 1 foot in the grave. It's 1 foot in Strive. Used to be 1 foot in Ultimate. Used to be 1 foot in Dragon Ball Fighters. Right? There's always something that is keeping him from. I mean, hey, we talk about Zayn as a top 5 player all time, possibly. I don't think there's any reason why Leffen couldn't have done that. It's just been like visa issues, and then played multiple games. He's always had something that has been keeping him back from what I think his potential is. I'd love to see him do well here. Edwin, am I crazy here? This prediction of Zayn winning from losers, I think, is like so unfounded. I have not seen Zayn do this. Tell me, am I crazy for thinking this?
I mean, like the thing is, like it's so specific. So it's like, are we talking like he makes a losers run from like 9th place to winning the event, or does he go to
No.
finals and then lose and then like win losers finals and then win both set of grands? Like it's kind of hard for me to envision it. I wouldn't say it's totally crazy though. It's just it's just another possibility of Zayn winning the event.
Have we seen Zayn win an event from losers before?
I don't think so.
Well,
Or no, Four Loco Fight Night.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah.
Four Loco is the last one I can think of.
Online doesn't count.
Yeah, so I think I think you have a very good pick. I think Zayn, but you mentioned that you didn't have statistics, but let's be real. If you did have statistics available in front of you, the numbers are pointing towards Zayn. That's just the way the match spreads show up, the head-to-heads, whatnot. People's trajectories. It just seems it's a rational pick, and I commend you for it. Radar, you picked Hungrybox, which was a less rational pick, but I can see the there. If he can show us something new against Zayn and beat the people that we expect him to beat, and like look like the player that we know he's capable of being on offline. But my friends, I went in a different direction. My prediction for Battle of BC 4 champion is Amsa. Now I'm going to tell you why. One, it's fun. Second of all, I think if you look at like the field attending this event, his chances against everyone else, I do not know if we are going to see as good of a field and as good of a shot for him to win this event as we are seeing right now. I think like with no Triff, no Lod, even though Lod we've seen him win before, that's still hard. No Lod, no Polish, no Wizrobe is very big for him. No none. We'll see how if he and SJ play, we'll see how that goes. But I think I would slightly favor Amsa in that just by virtue of him looking like a very new player this year than the one of the past. I think Hungrybox is hard but doable for him, as we've seen him win those before in fairly dominant or convincing fashion. I think him versus Mango is always very very terrifying for Mango, even if it's like maybe not lopsided long term. Sometimes it kind of like trends in Amsa's favor, and it seems like we're in the middle of a period where Amsa just has his number and feels very confident in that matchup. I think Amsa is a monster against Fox. Honestly, like when we think of the Foxes that play the matchup, the only one that I think is kind of scary for Amsa, like really, is Moki. Like I could see Moki being like very tough.
I was gonna say, yeah.
But like based on the Moki we've seen on land this year, I don't know if Moki will he could make it that far, but I don't know if he will. And I think from what we've seen of Amsa versus Fox specifically in the last like year and a half or so, or the last year, he just looks like a monster in that matchup. He's just like really revamped his punish game. It's so much to where like he's even counterpicking FD against Foxes and just blowing them up there now. I think just given the circumstances of who's attending this event, who's not attending this event, like who he does well against, who he can show glimpses of promise of. If Amsa and Zayn play in bracket, like look, I think Zayn is favored. I think that's a very hard opponent for Amsa. But I'm not willing to say that like it's kind of like before when Zayn was beating Plup a lot. I never felt comfortable when people were saying like, oh, Plup is free for Zayn. Like Plup needs a miracle to beat him. It never felt like the head-to-head history was really quite indicative of the long-term trend of that matchup or how scary Plup was as an opponent for Zayn. And I feel somewhat similarly about Amsa. I think he's very close to pulling it out against Zayn. And I think he has as good of a shot as anyone from like 6 to 10 or like 5 to 10, frankly. I think it's just if he doesn't win this weekend, and admittedly, it's still very hard for him to not win this weekend. I don't think we're going to see a better shot for him to win a major in a long time if it's not this one. I think that the stars are aligning, and that's what my heart's telling me. I want to see Amsa win a major, and I think it would be just such a huge boost to his legacy and just a massive testament to Melee, really, if someone like him is able to win an event of this size.
I will say that, like, worth mentioning, Amsa is going to be moving to Vancouver, so there would definitely be this like very kind of touching aspect of the narrative of like goes to Canada, goes to Vancouver. He's expecting to move to, wins the event there, kind of on his like new home turf. It would be very, very cool to see. So I would definitely be happy to see that, even if I don't necessarily see it being very likely. Wheat.
Hey, what's going on? Edwin, how does it feel? How does it feel to get to make a fun pick? Because we got a little bit of a role reversal this week without planning it. I picked the favorite, and then you go off and pick some pie in the sky answer. How does it feel?
It feels wonderful.
See?
I think that if it's not this, like I don't know what it is. Like there's no Plup either. There's no Wizzy. Like it really feels like if Amsa is gonna win a major. I mean, I guess maybe a summit if he gets a favorable field. But like if he doesn't win this event, it's not that like it would be disappointing or whatever, because it's still a very tall order. Like let's be real. I just think like if it's gonna happen, like this is a pretty good. This is like what you want if you're him.
It's a great.
So I want to pick it.
It's a great feeling to pick a result that you pretty much know is not going to happen because you feel cool. It's like, nah, I think Amsa's going to win. It's a great feeling. One set I want to see that I don't think is necessarily. I don't think it's going to be super hard for Amsa. I don't think it's going to be super easy. I think this could go either way. I want to see him versus Jmook. That's something we just haven't seen yet. I think that could be a really cool set. That might happen.
They played Smash World Tour in pools.
They played a Smash World Tour, yeah. So I guess I mean that like the new the new Jmook.
The new Jmook we've come to appreciate. The one who's not just like, oh, like, I guess he's top 25 or 30. We're talking about the top 5, potentially top 5.
Top 5 player, right? Yeah. I think that should be a cool thing. Less cool, I think it's going to be his inevitable set versus HBox if it happens. I think that Jmook was really, 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 really good. I think that he is like fodder for HBox. And this was before they had a set at Training Mode Tuesdays yesterday. This is before that. I have like felt despair thinking about like his chances versus HBox. But I would love to be proven wrong on this one.
Did you watch those sets? I watched the second one, but I didn't catch the first one.
Yeah, I watched them as well. I think there were a lot of time.
Okay, like what did he get? How did the first one go?
6-1. I think it was 3-1. 3-1, and I think it was 3-2. So
yeah.
Not horrible.
Yeah,
I think if Melee were a one-shot game, I think Jmook would have been great. I think there's a lot of times where he comes out of the gate, just like he has this intensity, he has this like speed, and I would see like he'd open up games and he'd get like 80% on HBox right away. Unfortunately, it's a 4-stat game, but unfortunately, Puff has she's got that move, and I think just like HBox did such a good job at sharking with up air. I think up airs. I mean, I'm not a Puff player. I'm not a Sheik player. I'm also not good at Melee. But I think that move and that matchup is really hard to deal with. I mean, I don't know. Every time Jmook did an up tilt, I like freaked out. I got so worried. I just like imagined in my mind doing the up tilt and then HBox like rests it or something, which didn't happen, but we will see. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I am down for Jmook playing more people because the more people he plays, we get a bigger idea, a better grasp of what he is and like how good he is. I even further than that, just like the dumb caveman idea of he is fun to watch, right? I I would like to see him play more people because I just want to see it. I don't even need to like color his like matchup spread. I just like literally want to see him play people. So I think this is going to be a sick event. Whatever happens, I think there's going to be something to come out of this, and then we've got a little bit of a run going on. We had a little bit of a run before with like Genesis and Pound and Function and all that. We've got, I believe, a little bit of a break, and then we've got CEO at the end of the month. Well, I guess we'll see who's there, but then we've got Gommel and Double Down, and we've got all this type of stuff. So whatever we see here, I think is going to be a little like appetizer to what's happening in the summer. So I'm super excited to see what's coming for Battle BC. I don't know. We had a lot of questions on our mind about can players do this, can players do that. Radar, we've got some questions for you specifically though from our patrons.
Cool.
So here I've got one for you. This one is from Soma. I believe a patron who we haven't asked a question from yet. So Soma asks, "Are you the best melee player with a palindromic tag?"
My immediate assumption would be no, just based on my own skill. But I'm trying to think of other people who have palindromic tags in the scene, and no one is coming to mind. But even knowing that, my guess is no. But
yeah, there's a couple brainstorms. I think the big question in the patron channel of the Melee Stats Discord was, do 1-letter tags count as a palindrome?
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, do 2-letter tags count?
Does that really work? Like that's like, I mean, I guess so. I don't like that either.
Wow, it just seems like you wanna be the best one. So
I want to be the best with the palindromic tag. Yeah, who knew?
Yeah. Well, I think the brainstorm led to GG, who is a UK Puff player, DD, who of course is I believe a Puff player as well. I'm sure there's more, right? We got to get the brain trust together and really brainstorm something. But I think there's some fun ones out there. But maybe it's you. Hey, maybe you go on a run at Gommel or something and can really stake your claim.
Yeah, I haven't entered a tournament in so long, and I'm not actually going to be entering Gommel or Battle of BC. But I have been playing a lot, so I've been trying to get better. So
if we're talking about palindrome tags, we don't count like punctuation or other characters, do we? Or no? Because I think mom is a good one.
Mom would be a good one. Yeah, mom.
That definitely counts. Yeah.
Yeah. Mom is definitely a good one. Bob. Is there Bob? Let's go with palindromes and then work our way backwards.
What about PP just on its own?
No, he never went by that.
Yeah, no, he didn't.
You ever listen to the song Bob by Weird Al?
No, I've not heard it.
That's familiar. I'm sure I listened to it like a while ago and just don't remember it. It's in like a 9.5 minute song or something.
I think it's a long one. I was never a Weird Al kid, which might be surprising. But I've listened to it in my adulthood. It's like a Bob Dylan type thing, and it's all palindromes. It's very impressive. I believe the one that sticks in my mind is "Go hang a salami, I'm a lasagna hog."
Interesting.
Wow.
Okay, I guess it's not mine. I didn't come up with it, so I didn't bomb. He bombed.
You did. He got it. You didn't.
Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, we got one from Zadrio. Radar, if you could take any trait from a top player game-wise, or even outside the game, who would it be and what trait would you take?
So you're saying like I could take like Leffen's work ethic or something?
Yeah,
Is that the idea?
yeah, that's how I interpret the questions. Yeah.
Leffen's
Hmm.
hairstyle.
If I could take a trait, and we're talking like, is it the idea of like what would I want to if I was trying to be a player that was winning, or is it just like what do I kind of want?
What do
Period.
you want for whatever goals you may have?
I think I would probably take someone like Moki or maybe Bobby Big Balls as like creativity with the character. I feel like both those guys like have a way of playing where it genuinely feels like like the way I approach Melee, it feels more like flowcharty and kind of like predicted of like, okay, yeah, in this situation, my brain is like, you can do these couple things. And over time, I start to go like these three options are just the options you probably should do. And it feels like Moki's brain just doesn't work that way ever. It's like, no, you could always do any of these billion options. And so you could just kind of go wild. And I wish I had that same like just kind of raw creativity because it's so fun to watch. And I think it might even just be more fun to play that way. I try to do that. I try to like try new things when I'm playing. So yeah, that would probably be my pick.
Think outside the box, man. I'd probably pick Jmook's posture. I think that
I
having
already
good
have decent
posture.
enough posture on my own, I'd say, but
Okay, all right. Well, did you see his posture during his push-ups?
I guess I didn't really pay attention to it specifically then, but I do know that his posture was good throughout.
So he plays with Mac. He does the set with
Mhm.
Mac. Mac loses. Mac does the push-ups. Jmook goes down, does perfect posture push-ups better, faster, and then he feels bad, so he meets Mech's speed. It's just like what an insane flex. I believe we talked about in the podcast. It's very possible. This is like stuck in my mind. I'll probably die with this thought. I believe that Jmook has teased the fact that he might pole dance because after Summit, HBox was streaming, Jmook was just like talking to chat on the stream, and someone asked if he could twerk, and he said, "I won't answer that, but I will tell you that I have a pole in my room." And it's like what an insane if Jmook comes out one day and he's like he tweets that he's gonna do a pole dancing stream, I honestly think that we will see the largest esports contract of all time. Like if honestly that's the like infinity stone that he needs. He's got everything else. He's
That's
got great
funny.
posture. He can play guitar and he can sing. He is great at the game.
He meditates also, I
He
think.
Of
meditates.
course he does. Of course he does.
And yeah, if he can pole dance, that's like the one thing he needs. He's got it all. But of course, we could spend all day talking about Jmook here. Edwin, do you want to?
Yeah, I think just really quickly, just because I want my opinion on this to be heard. So I need to if I was picking someone and the skill they had, I would take Mott Money's poker skill.
Oh yeah,
Use it to just farm games nonstop. Have a nice little
true.
side.
We talk about how there's this whole thing about oh yeah, if Mango goes to an event, he's actually losing money. He'd make more if he streamed. And it's just like, dude, I don't want to hear it. If Mont Money's going to like events and if he's going to stage select in Jersey on a Tuesday, he could easily go to Park Casino and make $30,000. He's done it. We've seen it. So I don't want to hear this whole thing about HBox, if he didn't go to the event, he would make more money streaming. Mont Money would make more money going to a casino. So let's put this idea to rest. Edwin, I think that's an incredible answer.
That's funny.
I agree.
We've got one more question here. This one is from our good friend YCZ6. What's your favorite moment from a Melee game show?
I mean, I think even though I guess it's biased to kind of towards the stuff that I've worked on, but I gotta say, Hugs not knowing the color of the boots of Fox's like green outfit was so profoundly hilarious. And then when I think the first time I'd like actually like chilled with Hugs in person was at Pinnacle, and we all like made fun of him at that dinner just for still like not knowing like Hugo, how could you possibly not know? And I've told this story probably privately, but he literally was like, I don't know any color of any player except for I think it was Mango and Silent Spectre. And then Zoo was like, what? What are you what are you talking about? And they would start naming like, what about this guy? And he'd be like, no idea. And it would be like well-known players, like, what about Leffen? And he'd be like, blue. I don't like, he just kind of start pulling it out and had no idea. And it just was like it started off as a funny moment and then it delivered and it still continues to deliver. So gotta be that for sure.
My thoughts exactly. When I saw this question, I thought it was a great question. This came first in my head. Edwin, we don't usually do this where we ask patron questions and then weigh in, but I think these ones are good questions. What do you think? What was your favorite moment from a Melee game show as someone who's worked on them?
I'm gonna, I'm not someone who puts other people on blast a lot, not in public. I'm a very nice person, and I say this with a lot of love. But I think sometimes when sometimes failure is a moment in of itself, and something that I have to absolutely shout out, and especially this comes from a very close friend of mine, is my college friend, fellow Yukon Smasher, but also Melee Stats patron Eben Flow, for not knowing how many stages are banned after game one in a best of three set by the winner. This is someone who has played countless tournament sets. Like he's played Melee. He's gone to tournaments. He's played tournament sets. He knows rules. He's stage striked before. I've been with him, the full gamut of his relationship with Melee and like our friendship and everything. And it truly baffled me that he did not know how many stages were banned after game one in a best of three. And it just it really just like stunned me on a whole level and taught me a lot. It helped me grow in many ways.
I thought of one. What I actually a lot of these things that I've written down, this is very emblematic of Melee Stats. Melee Stats is a very if you why would you do it if you don't put your all into it? And I think that a lot of these questions that we've made for Golden Guardians or for 5 Days of Melee, I felt very proud of. But one of the funniest ones that I think I've made was on the third episode of Golden Guardians Jeopardy that they did called Puff Puff Pass, where I listed 3 players and 2 of them were a Puff player. You had to guess who was not a Puff player. I thought that was very funny. Every one of those clues had an internal theme within the larger theme. So Jerry, Albert, and Michael, all people who have first name tags, and included using dumb things like STJ, JD, DSJ. I thought that was really, really dumb. I was very happy with that. Yeah, that was from Golden Guardians 3. I mean, probably, hey, have you watched that? I'm sure we got other great clues in there, but that was a specifically fun one. Radar, you've been on the show before. It's been a minute though. So I actually am not sure if you've been around for our last segment. We have an unnamed segment, officially unnamed, but all the fans know it as Touching Grass. Everyone knows it as Touching Grass. So this is our segment where we talk about stuff that's going on in our lives that are not Melee related, right? We are multifaceted human beings. We have stuff that does not include all this other stuff, that we talk about for 2 hours. So while we spend 2 hours a week devoting to Melee talk, we'll take about 5-10 minutes talking about stuff that's going on. So while you are thinking of something that's going on in your life that is not Melee related, I will start. Recently, I have been I get this inclination every now and then. I'm not a huge Pokemon guy. I of course have a huge nostalgic connection to Pokemon, and I do like Pokemon. I've played the games. I sometimes will buy the new games and not finish them, but I do like Pokemon. I just not super into it. And for a while, I don't think I've had a favorite Pokemon. So every now and then, I will try to I'm like, this is the day where I get a favorite Pokemon. So I did a little bit of a I don't know. I just went through a couple of different ones that I liked and just said, "Fuck it, this one's my favorite." But I won't reveal that this week. This will not be my talking grass segment for this week because by next week I should have stuff to show it off. This week I'm going to talk about something else that's been going on. So of course, it's the summer, I guess. Technically not, right? But it's been very nice outside. Been doing stuff. I had a few family parties over the weekend, just like birthdays and baptisms and stuff like that. And I got to hang out with my sister a lot there. And she had just watched Stranger Things and asked me all about Kate Bush. And I'm a very good guy to ask about that because I like Kate Bush a lot. I've liked her for a few years. She thought I was joking when I said I liked her, and then I like pulled out. I've got like 5 albums of hers. It was very fun to show Kate Bush to her, an artist who, you know, it's like when nerds like me, pretentious little guys, when like big artists or when artists that we like get big through like weird means, everyone gets a little weird and, you know, it's like cagey. But I think Kate Bush is an amazing artist. Been obviously listening to her, been able to recommend her. Getting the chance to like look back and like watch the videos, she's an amazing she's just like a very like the platonic ideal of a theater kid when I watch these videos. I think theater kids are bad. I think I'm anti kid. But you watch these videos and it's like so clearly of her own mind. My sister and I watched the Wuthering Heights videos and I was joking about how the director probably didn't know what he was getting into. Like he's just like, all right, I'll just like place the camera here and we can like maybe do this. And then she's got like a whole routine going on. I think she's a very good artist to check out. I think that there's a lot of fun in looking at her videos or live performances. You know, very few of them, but the ones that she did had that insane theater kid energy that were great. I would obviously check out the studio albums. And the one thing to prove that I like Kate Bush. I've liked her for a while and a connection to the people here. There is a video that exists on Ding's phone. Sam Ding, Dingus Master, you know. There's a video that exists on his phone that he tried to sneakily do, but I played along, where we were driving home. We were driving back to his house from Edwin's wedding. And he put on Wuthering Heights, one of her early singles, and we tried to sing along in the very high falsetto. So there's a video out there from 2018, 2019?
2019, yeah.
2019. There's a video from 2019 of me and him singing along, trying to match this impossibly high song. So I hope to God it never sees the light of day, but that's just a way to prove that I've been on this kick for a little bit. So check out Kate Bush and I guess watch Stranger Things. I don't really care, but sure. Credit where credit's due. Edwin, what's been going on with you, my man?
I've been watching a ton of movies beyond just Batman. I think I'm done with Batman. I watched Batman Returns.
No, dude, you still have to watch Batfleck and Lego Batman. You're not done.
Well, anyway,
pain in his face. Just
watching Batman has inspired me to watch a bunch of other movies and write up reviews of them. So I've been having a lot of fun in my spare time just adding stuff to my Letterboxd account. And I'm hoping that by the end of the year, I'll have like 1,000 films. And I review every film that I rate. So it's been fun kind of gathering my thoughts on them for a while. My 100th film that I reviewed was It Chapter 2, which came after my review of It, the first It, the 2017 one. And the last movie I reviewed was Parasite, which I saw, I think, like a year ago, and I just gathered my thoughts on it again. I guess I should be like rewatching it if I really want to make like a review super authentic. But a lot of it is just kind of, I mean, the fun is that Letterboxd is like a social media platform where you can quickly put whatever like short thoughts you have or long thoughts you have on a movie. So I've been doing pretty short reviews for the most part, but it's been really fun. It's fun revisiting, movies from my childhood, even like rewatching a few that have intrigue for me again. It's been really fun. If you want to check out my Letterboxd, you can just search my real name in it or just search Edwin Budding in the search bar, all in one word. I think you may not agree with my film takes, but I think my reviews are fun. think you're
but
good.
you must respect them.
Yes.
Radar, I'm sure you're going to talk about lemons and how you love to cook with lemons. And I know you've got a beautiful lemon dinner tonight that we're going to let you get to. But what's been going on with your life recently? Anything that you want to talk about?
I mean, I guess the big and obvious thing to mention is I am getting married in about like less than 20 days, I guess. It
Wow.
would be. I'm getting married June 25th. So there's just like a constant stream of like emails I'm CC'd on and like just stuff that I need, like very minor things like, hey, should we have like this many people at this table, this many people at that table? So that every day gets a little bit closer. I'm looking forward to it. I'm also really, really anxious about getting COVID, not being able to go to my own wedding. So as long as I can not get COVID at Battle of EC and, get through the wedding smoothly, that will be very, very awesome. I will go into GOML being a married man, which is kind of a strange thing. So that's probably the biggest thing. In terms of like what's taking up my attention. It's funny, you mentioned Pokemon. Several months ago, I got back into like my old Pokemon cards and like started trying to collect that whole kind of like the original Wizards of the Coast thing. So that's also like a not as recent of a hobby, but like a couple months ago, I was obsessed. I was trying to get every card that I had wished I had when I was younger. So maybe those are the two.
It's a good two to have. Yeah, I mean, I will be busy that weekend, so unfortunately not able to attend. Is Walt going? Do we have any Melee people who are going?
Not really. I think originally I was thinking about it, and it's like we tried to keep it kind of like smaller. There was a whole world where at one point we were like, Walt might be like the video guy for it, because there was a world where we were like, we had really short story. We were picking out photographers and we locked them in. They seemed really nice. COVID happened and they became like anti-vax and were like not able to film that wedding. And it was a whole catastrophe. And then at one point we were like, oh my God, like now we need to get like a new video person. And Walt was like, look, like I could do it. So we didn't end up going that route. Mostly just because I thought like to have to pay to fly Walt out, it'd be quite far. Like, getting someone local would be just a lot more affordable. But that would have been a very funny kind of crossing of worlds. And yeah, so unfortunately, no Smashers there. I think if it was happening a couple of years from now, I can definitely see Smashers being there. But yeah.
I think, yeah, sounds like a fun event. Smashers or not. I know at Edwin's wedding, there was a little bit of a smash table that was a little raucous.
Yeah,
they were rambunctious.
Yeah, they were the loudest table and this is not like it was an Indian wedding, right? So kind of a big thing. So there's a lot of tables, a lot of different spheres of my life, a lot of different spheres of like my parents, where they're from, like even people I'm not particularly tight with, but like they just came because of like their relationship to someone in my family. That's just like an Indian American thing. And I can say of every table, the loudest, most rowdy, notorious one was the Smashers table in the back. And there are so many stories from, based on that wedding, what happened at the venue, trips to the venue, Ubers going to the wrong address, certain Smashers getting stuck on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere, leaving their cell phone in the Uber before taking flights back to their original states. A lot of lore behind that, but I'm grateful that it happened.
I do think 90% of the stories are from like 10% of the Smashers, though.
Yeah, that's a fair point. But yeah, it was great. Radar, congratulations on getting married. Welcome to the club.
Thank you.
And if I can give you one bit of advice as a married man to a soon-to-be married man, the moment you get married, one of the best things about it is being able to talk about it nonstop to all your non-married friends and holding it over like nonstop. Always talk about how you're a man of tradition, how like insert it in conversations where it's not even relevant necessarily. Be like, well, as someone who's married, like my opinion on this.
As someone who's married, I would probably get the cold lobster roll.
Yeah. Everywhere you go. And it never
I'm
gets
looking
old.
forward to having that special ability, that privilege, you know.
Yeah, man. When you come to Shine, I'll take you out somewhere nice for lunch or dinner. But I'll get you a special married man meal that'll taste better. And like and the kind of thing that non-married people would not
They
necessarily.
wouldn't understand it. Yeah.
Yeah, they
Right
wouldn't
now,
even.
I'm confused, but I know in a couple weeks from now, I'll totally get it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you see you're starting to get it. In a
Yeah,
couple
it's
weeks,
coming to me.
you'll be right there.
Well, Radar, congrats on what's coming up with that, with your wedding, with Battle BC, with Gommel. I'm sure, you will kill in my commentary. So ready for that. I'm ready to see this millionaire thing. I'm sure you killed it with that. And I appreciate you being on here during all of this, right? You've got so many things going on, and your willingness to jump on for 2.5 hours and talk about lemons and try to defend your opinion on them. I appreciate that. So you're a really great guest. It was great to have you on. And yeah, I can't wait to see what you've got going on at Battle of BC and Gommel and whatever comes after that.
Absolutely. I'm definitely super happy to be on. I think, even just saying with the wedding and stuff, this is honestly like one of the weirdest months of my entire life. Like these are by far the two, well, I can't say the Gommel spot yet, I don't think, but like big commentary slots coming up. I'm getting married. We're doing this game show thing. There's so many things this month that I'm super excited for, and I'm glad I got to share a bit of that today. I'm really looking forward to Battle of BC. I'm really looking forward to seeing if any of these storylines we discussed end up proving true. I'd love to see Amsa win. Love to see Zane kind of cement his legacy. So I just want to say thanks so much for having me on.
Of course.
Yeah, and I'm always down. I'm looking forward to getting the check mark on the jacket.
Oh, God.
I'm
Everyone knows
still
about the
behind a lot of
jacket.
other guys.
I know.
But I will say the Melee merch that Pipsqueak, Melee Stats merch that Pipsqueak was wearing, I was like, oh man, I wanna contribute my little like stamps. Like when you get like a free coffee after a certain amount of visits. If I ever get a Melee Stats shirt, after a certain amount of podcasts,
More to come eventually. Keep an eye out for that. We're just dealing with a lot of things at this point, but speaking about Melee merch, it'll be coming. Melee Stats merch, that is. Radar, if people want to follow you, where can they do so?
Yeah, you guys can find me at Radar SSBM on Twitter. My YouTube is still youtube.com/micromelee. Obviously, check out Battle of BC, check out Gommel. Yeah, I think those are the main spaces. I mean, I guess Twitch as well. I've been also streaming on my YouTube a bit. I was doing some like analysis stuff. So yeah, check out the YouTube. And yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me.
Yeah, if you want to follow all the content that we make, you can follow us. Go over, subscribe on YouTube. Melee Stats, that's where we're going to have all of our long form content, our video essays. Melee Stats Archive on YouTube is where we're going to have VODs of this show and some other stuff here and there. If you want to watch the show live, you can do so on twitch.tv/Melee Stats. Over on twitter.com/Melee Stats Pod is where we're going to find tweets about daily results posting and other stuff like that. MeleeStats.co is going to have Wednesday Melee and Monday Morning Marth. And if you love everything we do and you just want to support us in any way you can, patreon.com/Melee Stats. Radar, you've been a wonderful guest. I can't wait to see what you're going to be up to. And probably the last time I'm going to speak to you before you get married. So congrats on that. And unfortunately, once that happens, I guess I won't understand you, according to Edwin.
No,
we will just be
apparently so.
Two ships in the night. We won't be connected.
Exactly.
But congrats on everything, man. Thank you for being on, and thank you everyone for watching. We'll be back next week to talk about whatever happens here at Battle BC. See you then. Peace.
See you guys.
See ya.